This is video number 816, Quick Start Part 0.5. In this part 0.5, we'll show some Atlas switches that you can use for easy wiring, the Z-Stuff infrared detector for detecting O-gauge trains, and several control panel variations. Here's the latest control unit we built as of January 2023, and that's for the latest published video 835, where we controlled 6 MTH O-gauge 3-rail PCC cars on the same main line. And this basically has, well, here's the mini panel here, and it basically has an Atlas number 56 switch, which is made for throwing snap turnouts. It's basically the equivalent to a having two push buttons or a single pole double throw momentary toggle, but we can use it in this position and push it down for reset, and use it in this position and push it down for start. And then over here we've got 3 Atlas number 205 connectors, and these are basically, normally they'd be used to turn a siding on or off. When you push them down, it turns it on, and it keeps it on. You push it that way, up in this case, it would turn that siding off. It's a simple switch. It's continuously on or continuously off, and there's 9 of these. With three of these connectors, we get 9 switches essentially, so we can wire this to 9 different inputs and control the flow. What I've found seems more efficient is just use input 1 for a push button, and that's what this thing does over here. This connects to input 1 in the start position and starts the thing up, and then we use these 9 switches which can ground 9 inputs to control the flow of the program. In this case, 6 of the switches control which of the 6 streetcars are running, and there's an unused one. This controls the horn, and this controls what we call a repeat process, where it keeps going or quits. We can put that same program in this I have, which we used before, where we send a dummy accessory command to make the mini panel blink, and then we delay a half a second, and then we link back to the top step 1 to just make it repeat, and we keep looping like that. So we put that same program in this thing. So if we push the start, which is I push this button that way to start it. It's labeled here. I'm not sure it shows under the wires, but I'll push it to start it, and you can see that thing starts blinking in a half a second like it was doing before. This was demo 1 in video 816. And if I push this Atlas button down this way and then actually push on it so it resets, you can see it turned it off and stopped blinking. Now if we push it back that way for the start position and push on it, it's blinking and running. It's running continuously. If we push the button this way and then actually push down on it, it stops it. These are these buttons, you may have seen them. They're typically used to control Atlas HO snap switches. You know, you push the button one way for straight and the other way for curve. But in this case, it's handy to use for start and reset. And these I like them because they're easier to wire up. You don't have to make a bracket to like hold a toggle switch. So you just mount them to the base and wire them up. And likewise, these things make wiring a little simple because you don't have to make any mounts for toggle switches. You just screw them into the board, and you got a common ground. All these they connect together, so all the grounds are connected together. So it makes it a little simpler to do the wiring. On the subject of detectors, I often use these things. This is a Z-Stuff DZ1012 infrared block signal detector, and when something goes, it's green right now, but if something goes in front of it, you can see it turns to red, and then it clears back to green. it often like with the six running these 6 streetcars, we can use a single detector, and this is nice because it doesn't connect to the track. It's portable. You can actually pick it up and move it to some other position on the layout. It's portable, and if I take this thing off of here, right now the detector, you can see it's sitting on top of this wood. But if I take it off and put it alongside and hot glue it, which I've done, it's low enough I can actually detect an N-gauge streetcar, and those things are pretty tiny. And you can see here it works for O scale, and you could also use it all the way up to large scale. So you can use it basically anything from N scale to G scale. This is the latest year 2026 video number 850, part 2/2. We're using that same Z-Stuff detector out in the center here on this large scale display where we're running 3 logos point to point. We just have to put the detector up on a block of wood to get it high enough to detect the bodies of the logos. Otherwise it works the same as it does on the N gauge. And back here under these wires is a Z-Stuff DZ1008 relay. So when this relay is normally open, when a train goes in front of it and turns it to red, this relay goes to closed, and it's wired to the Mini-Panel's inputs. So this tells the Mini-Panel that something went in front of that detector. Incidentally, this control board would be pretty much useless for switch routing, which is how most people use the Mini-Panel, because they typically have lots of push buttons hooked up to select different switch routings. They push a push button that lines the switches up. So this wouldn't do any good to have these constantly connected switches, but this works, like I say, more efficiently, I think, for automatic control. Here's some other versions of these control units we've been using. This one right here is the one we've been using to run these streetcars, and this is one that was used to run the streetcars earlier. It's almost the same. You can see we have 2 of these Atlas connectors, and then we used 2 toggle switches. Here we have a Schmale. This was used on the earlier video 834 that ran at the Toy Train Expo. This is a tortoise Schmale, similar to a Circuitron tortoise, but it has NCE components inside that you can control it with DCC. And we have this red-green light here we call the status light, and when the public pushed the button and the system started running, that changed from green to red, and we could tell them it doesn't do any good to push the button until it changes from red back to green again. So we basically called this thing a status light, and we used the tortoise, the Schmale, to operate it. And we have space on this board here to put a Schmale in there. It's not on this unit used for the video, but there's space where we could add one to add a status light to this control unit. And then back here is an earlier unit. Let's take the camera off the tripod here. Back here, this is the unit I've been using to run the point-to-point system, and here we've got a bunch of toggle switches. I think there's 3, 6, about seven or so toggle switches, and they do the same thing as these Atlas connectors. You just ground one of the Mini-Panel's inputs to ground. It makes a little more wires though using the toggle switches, because you got a plus to run to the controller and you got a negative you got to run to somewhere. In this case I ran it out here, so these things are a little easier to wire up. Then back here, and here's again another Schmale used to control the status light, which in this case is a red-green signal. And then back here is an earlier one. If you go back to the earlier videos like 816 and before, we use push buttons. You can see this one has 4 push buttons here, plus another there's another push button over here that connects input 1 to ground, and here's our repeat switch. So earlier versions of these control systems, we use push buttons to start little programs running within this controller, but it seems more efficient as we've experimented to have just one program running, and rather than push buttons, we use the either the toggle switches or the on-off switches like this. You have like basically one program that runs from input 1 all the way to input 30 and checks everything, including the detector. Same control panel shown in the year 2025, and this is from video 849, Train Choreography. And the control panel's basically the same as it was in 2023 that we showed you a minute ago, except we've added these 4 NCE lights on the lower left corner of the control panel. And these NCE lights are essentially DCC controllable lights. In this case, in this video, we were running 4 different tracks sequentially, one after the other, one at a time, which is why we called it Train Choreography, and we were using the lighters to show which of the 4 tracks was being run at the time. The tortoise schmale we talked about earlier, about 3 minutes ago, back at about the 8-minute point in this video, has since been replaced by a 5th NCE lighted located about here where I'm wiggling the mouse. It's kind of flat back there and you can't really see it well, but it's controlling this red-green status light. It can change a light from red to green, and if this had a yellow, it could control the yellow part of the signal also. Video 849 part 1/2 at about the 38-minute 40-second point discusses this thing in more detail, how we used that NCE light. This is video 849 part 1/2. We're looking at it. The NCE lights have been around for several years, but I'm just now figuring out how to use them.